Playing with Power MTG. Powerful cards, powerful formats. Be sure to check out Dragon Shield for all of the best accessories to protect your decks. TCG Player for cards at great prices while supporting local game stores. And Patreon, where you get awesome benefits for your direct support. Tonight we are playing with our patron Tyler. He brought one of his favorite decks to battle against the Playing with Power team tonight. Now, let's start out by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have Mike piloting the partner pair of Tymna the Weaver and Jeska, Thrice Reborn. This is a Mardu list called Mad Farm. It seeks to resolve ad nauseum or peer into the abyss to find and assemble one of its infinite mana combos. Once assembled, it uses Jeska to burn out the table. Mike's opening hand contains an Esper Sentinel, Dockside Extortionist, Verdant Catacombs, Dauthi Voidwalker, Windswept Heath, and his London Mulligans are a Phyrexian Tower and an Ancient Tomb. Next, we have Zach piloting Chulane, Teller of Tales. This is a mid-range deck that uses mild stacks and interaction combined with Chulane's abilities to grind advantage and close out the game with a combo. Zach's opening hand contains a Mox Opal, Mana Crypt, Mox Diamond, Fabro Elder, Birds of Paradise, Earthcraft, and a Mana War. After that we have Tyler piloting Kenrith, the Return King. It seeks to create a lot of treasures with cards like Dockside or Smothering Tithe in combination with wheel effects like Whirlpool Warrior. Tyler's opening hand contains an Ancient Tomb, Watery Grave, Tundra, Delay, and his London Mulligans are an Eladamri's Call, Seaborn Muse, and a Yawgmoth's Will. Finally, we have Ryan piloting Anje Falkenrath. This is a Madness deck that leverages its commander in conjunction with a lot of Madness cards to filter into either Worldgorger Dragon or Dockside Curio combos and win the game. Ryan's opening hand contains a Rite of Flame, Scalding Tarn, Polluted Delta, Blazing Rootwalla, Wheel of Fortune, Insatiable Gorgers, and Abiding Rain. Without further ado, let's kick off this wheeling wild, wacky, wonderful waltz. Zach wins the Trash Tag Challenge and gets to start us off. Zach draws a card for turn and casts a Mox Opal. He casts a Mana Crypt. Zach sighs, and everyone realizes he kept a no-land hand. In a bad spot, Zach passes the turn. Tyler draws a card for turn and plays a Tundra. He passes. Ryan draws and plays a Scalding Tarn. He ends his turn. Mike draws and plays a Windswept Heath. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Scrubland onto the battlefield. He casts an Esper Sentinel and passes the turn. During his upkeep, Zach wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws and casts a Mox Diamond. Esper Sentinel triggers and Zach pays for it. Mox Diamond resolves and Zach discards an Ancient Tomb. He casts a Fabro Elder and gives the turn to Tyler. Tyler draws and plays an Ancient Tomb. He ships the turn to Ryan. At the end of Tyler's turn, Ryan cracks a Scalding Tarn, pays a life, and fetches up a Blood Crypt onto the battlefield tapped. Ryan draws and plays a Polluted Delta. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Badlands onto the battlefield. He casts Rite of Flame. Esper Sentinel triggers and Mike draws. Ryan adds 2 red and then casts his commander, Anje Falkenrath. Ryan ends his turn. Mike draws and plays a Verdant Catacombs. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Badlands onto the battlefield. He casts a Dauthi Voidwalker. Ryan sighs and Mike moves to combat. He attacks Tyler with Esper Sentinel. Tyler takes it and Mike ends his turn. During his upkeep, Zach wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws and starts off his turn by casting a Mana Breach, paying for Esper Sentinel. In response, Tyler casts a Mystical Tutor. Esper Sentinel triggers and Tyler taps his Ancient Tomb to pay for it. Mystical Tutor resolves and Tyler fetches up a Fire Covenant onto the top of his library. Then Mana Breach resolves. Zach attacks Mike with Fabro Elder. Mike takes it and in his second main phase, he casts a Birds of Paradise. Zach ships the turn to Tyler. Tyler draws and plays a Watery Grave into play untapped, paying 2 life. He taps his Ancient Tomb to cast Smothering Tithe. Breach triggers and Tyler returns Ancient Tomb to his hand. Sentinel triggers and Mike draws. Tithe resolves and Tyler passes the turn. Ryan draws, Smothering Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. In his main phase, Ryan activates Anja, discarding Blazing Rootwalla, which dodges Dauthi Voidwalker due to Madness. He casts Blazing Rootwalla. Mana Breach triggers and Ryan floats mana in response. He then returns Badlands to his hand. Rootwalla resolves, Anja untaps, Ryan draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. Ryan plays a Badlands for turn. Ryan activates Anja, discarding Biting Rain. He casts Biting Rain. Mana Breach triggers, and Ryan returns Badlands to his hand again. Esper Sentinel triggers, and Mike draws. Then Biting Rain resolves and kills Rootwalla, Voidwalker, Esper Sentinel, and Birds of Paradise. Then Anja untaps, Ryan draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. With nothing else, Ryan passes the turn, discarding to hand size. Mike draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. He plays Bloodstained Mire and passes the turn. During his upkeep, Zach wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws, Tithe triggers, and Zach pays. He moves to combat and attacks Mike with Faburo Elder. Mike takes it, and in his second main phase, Zach casts his commander, Chulane, Teller of Tales. He plays an island for turn and passes to Tyler. Tyler draws and plays an Ancient Tomb for turn. He taps his Ancient Tomb to cast his commander, Kenrith, the Return King. Breach triggers and Tyler returns Ancient Tomb to his hand. Kenrith resolves and Tyler passes the turn. Ryan draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. He plays a Badlands for turn. Feeling the effects of Mana Breach, Ryan passes the turn. At the end of Ryan's turn, Mike cracks his Bloodstained Mire, pays a life, and fetches up a Sacred Foundry onto the battlefield tapped. Mike draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. He plays an Ancient Tomb for turn. He taps his Ancient Tomb to help cast Dockside Extortionist. Mana Breach triggers, and Mike returns Ancient Tomb to his hand. In response, Tyler casts Delay, targeting Dockside. Breach triggers, and in response, Tyler casts Fire Covenant, paying 7 life, targeting Chulane and Faburo Elder. Note that he specifically does not want to target Anje, mostly to get more treasures through Tithe. Breach triggers again, and Tyler returns Watery Grave to his hand. Fire Covenant resolves, killing the creatures, and then the original Breach resolves with Tyler bouncing Tundra. Then Delay resolves, and Dockside is countered and exiled with 3 time counters on it. With nothing else, Mike ends his turn. During his upkeep, Zach wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. He casts a Mana War. Breach triggers, and Zach returns his island to his hand. Mana War resolves and targets Anje. In response, Ryan activates Anje, discarding Insatiable Gorgers, untapping Anje, drawing a card, and giving Tyler a treasure. He activates Anje again, discarding Reckless Worm, Twins of Mauer Estate, Gorgon Recluse, and Malevolent Whispers, untapping Anje, drawing, and giving Tyler a treasure each time. He activates Anje, discarding Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. Kozilek triggers, and Ryan shuffles his graveyard into his library. Ryan then draws a card, Tyler gets a treasure, and Anje finally bounces to Ryan's hand. Zach plays an island for turn. He casts Earthcraft. Breach triggers, and Zach returns his island to his hand. Earthcraft resolves, and Zach gives the turn to Tyler. Tyler draws and plays an Ancient Tomb for turn. He attacks Zach with Kenrith. Zach declares no blocks, and in response, Tyler activates Kenrith twice, putting 2+1/+1 counters onto him. Zach takes the hit, and Tyler passes the turn. At the end of Tyler's turn, Ryan casts Red Elemental Blast, targeting Mana Breach. Breach triggers, and Ryan returns Badlands to his hand. Breach is destroyed, and Ryan moves to his turn. Ryan draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. Ryan plays a Badlands for turn. He casts a Mana Crypt. He casts a Demonic Tutor. He fetches up a card into his hand. He casts a Blood Pet. Ryan ends his turn. During his upkeep, Mike removes a time counter from his Dockside Extortionist. He draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. Mike plays an Ancient Tomb for turn. He casts his commander, Tymna the Weaver. Mike passes. At the end of Mike's turn, Zach casts Worldly Tutor. He fetches up a Bloom Tender onto the top of his library. During his upkeep, Zach loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He draws, Tithe triggers, and Zach pays for it. He plays an island for turn. He taps his island for blue, then activates Earthcraft, tapping Mana War to untap his island. He casts a Shrieking Drake. Everyone braces for impact, and Drake resolves. Drake enters and bounces Zach's Mana War back to his hand. He uses his Earthcraft to help recast Mana War. It resolves and targets Tyler's Kenrith. In response, Tyler taps his Ancient Tomb to activate Kenrith, drawing a card. Then Kenrith bounces to Tyler's hand. Zach uses Earthcraft to help cast Bloom Tender. Zach passes the turn. Tyler draws and plays a Rejuvenating Springs for turn. He casts a Finehorn Elves. He casts a Llanowar Elves. Tyler ends his turn. During his upkeep, Ryan loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He draws and plays a Mountain for turn. He casts Wishclaw Talisman. He activates Wishclaw, fetching up a card into his hand and giving the talisman to Tyler. He casts Dockside Extortionist. It enters and Ryan creates 8 treasures. He casts Unmarked Grave. He fetches up a World Gorger Dragon into his graveyard. He casts his commander, Anje Falkenrath. He then follows it up with an Animate Dead. With no responses, it resolves and brings back World Gorger Dragon to the battlefield. Ryan then presents a loop of tapping mana and cracking treasures through the World Gorger combo. He begins to rummage with Anje during the loop, paying for Smothering Tithe each time. He casts Alms of the Vein repeatedly through Anje and shuffles it back into his library through his Shuffle Titan. He performs this loop over and over again until everyone is dead and Ryan wins the game. Ladies and gentlemen, what a cool game. Congrats to Ryan on his win. He was able to use his Madness cards effectively at the right times to help clear the board and then waited for the right opportunity to go off. The most valuable card in tonight's game goes to Mana Breach. This card created a massive resource denial to the table. Zach was able to break parity on it through his deck, and the rest of the table had a very hard time fighting through it. Losing your ability to hit your land drops is absolutely backbreaking in a lot of decks, and this card showed what it could do tonight. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Tune in next time when we duke it out to see who will be king of the competitive EDH table. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Alright, Patreon shoutout time. I'd like to give a shout out to Alana Kexes, Salt, Jonas Kofoed, Ryan Wright, Kvitborn Kong Valamon. Ooh, that's brutal. Sorry about that. Natalia Rubinovitz, Ivan, through Marion Descendant, Frapril, Connor Holtz, Nathan Smith, Elijah Miller, Pyro, Dark, Mr. Doc Profoliol McSwaggy Pants the Third. Oh boy. Philip Hickey, Jacob Cromer, Brad Tobin, Matt Wingrove, Delph Driz, Dante, Jared Smith, Trey Payne, Rakeko, Zods, James Cody Halley, Spielrahu, CZ, Taylor Corun, Nick, and Liam. Thank you all very much for your support.